In the winter of 1964, in a warehouse in Oakland's Chinatown, 7 men watched Bruce Lee fight for his life. No cameras, no referees, no rules, and for over 50 years, they never spoke about what happened that night. This is that story. Picture this. It's December 20th, 1964. The sun has already set over the San Francisco Bay, and a cold fog is rolling through the streets of Oakland. In a part of the city most people never see, tucked between a noodle factory and an abandoned textile shop, there's a warehouse. From the outside, it looks like every other forgotten building in Chinatown. Peeling paint, broken windows covered with newspaper, a rusted lock that hasn't worked in years. But tonight this warehouse is anything but forgotten. Inside, the air is thick with tension. 7 men stand in a rough circle, their breath visible in the cold. The only light comes from a few bare bulbs hanging from the ceiling, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. There's no heat, no chairs, no comfort of any kind. This isn't a place designed for spectators. This is a place designed to be forgotten. And in the center of that circle, 2 men prepare to fight. One of them is Bruce Lee, 24 years old, married for barely a year. A martial arts instructor who's been making waves in the Bay Area by doing something controversial, something that's made him enemies. He's teaching kung fu to anyone who wants to learn. White students, black students. It doesn't matter to him, but it matters to a lot of other people. The other man we know very little about. His name was Wong, though that's probably not his real name. He's bigger than Bruce, taller, heavier, and according to the whispers that traveled through Chinatown's underground network, he's not just a martial artist. He's a professional, the kind of professional you hire when you want to send a message that words can't deliver. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because to understand what happened in that warehouse, you need to understand how Bruce Lee ended up there in the first place, and more importantly, why he couldn't walk away. Let me take you back 6 weeks earlier. November 1964. Bruce Lee is riding high. He's just opened his second martial arts school, this time in Oakland. His first school in Seattle had been successful, but Oakland is different. Oakland is the proving ground. The city has a thriving Chinese community, but it's also racially diverse, politically charged, and frankly, dangerous. The Black Panther Party will be founded here in just 2 years. Tensions between communities are running high. And Bruce is trying to build bridges. He's teaching anyone who walks through his door. His classes are integrated in a way that's almost unheard of in 1964, especially in martial arts. Traditional Chinese kung fu has always been kept within the Chinese community. Masters pass down techniques to their own people, protecting the secrets of their styles like they were guarding nuclear codes. Bruce doesn't care about any of that. He believes martial arts should be for everyone. He's even teaching some techniques that are supposed to stay within specific families, specific lineages. To him, it's about art, about helping people become better versions of themselves. To the traditional martial arts community, it's betrayal. Letters start arriving at his school, polite at first, suggestions that he reconsider his student selection process, reminders about tradition and respect. Bruce ignores them. Then the letters get less polite. Threats, warnings. One letter specifically tells him that if he continues teaching non-Chinese students, there will be consequences. Bruce tears it up and throws it away. His wife, Linda, finds the pieces in the trash. She's worried. She asks him if maybe, just maybe, he should take these threats seriously. Bruce laughs it off. He tells her he's not afraid of old men clinging to outdated traditions. He tells her that martial arts are evolving, and anyone who can't see that is already obsolete. But Linda knows her husband. She knows that beneath the confidence there's something else. Pride, stubbornness. The same qualities that make Bruce Lee extraordinary are the same qualities that might get him killed. Then, in early December, everything changes. Bruce receives a visitor at his school, an older man, well-dressed, speaking Cantonese with a Hong Kong accent. He's respectful, bows properly. compliments Bruce's facility, and then he delivers a message. The traditional martial arts community has issued a formal challenge. If Bruce Lee believes his skills are superior, if he truly believes he has the right to break with tradition, then he needs to prove it. One fight, one opponent. If Bruce wins, he can continue teaching whoever he wants. If he loses, he closes his schools and stops teaching non-Chinese students forever. Bruce asks who he'd be fighting. The man smiles, but it's not a friendly smile. It's the smile of someone who knows a secret you don't. You'll find out when you arrive, he says. Then he gives Bruce an address, the warehouse in Oakland, December the 20th, 9 p.m. And he tells Bruce something else, something that makes Linda's blood run cold. When Bruce tells her later that night, "Come alone. Tell no one." 7 witnesses have been selected to ensure fairness. They will be the only record of what happens. Bruce has 2 weeks to decide, 2 weeks to train, 2 weeks to wonder who he's going to face. He spends those weeks like a man possessed. He's already in incredible shape, but he pushes harder, longer hours, more intensity. He's trying to prepare for an unknown opponent, which is like trying to hit a target in the dark. Linda watches him train until his hands bleed. She watches him run through Oakland's streets in the freezing pre-dawn darkness. She watches him and she knows he's going to accept the challenge. On December the 19th, the night before the fight, Linda begs him not to go. She's pregnant, though she doesn't know it yet. She tells him it's not worth it. They can move, start over somewhere else. Teaching martial arts isn't worth dying for. Bruce holds her and tells him he's not going to die. He tells her that if he backs down now, everything he believes in means nothing. This isn't just about him. It's about the future of martial arts. It's about proving that tradition without evolution is just stagnation wearing a fancy name. She asks him what happens if he loses. He doesn't have an answer for that. The next day, December 20th, Bruce teaches his regular classes. His students notice he seems focused, almost distant. One student, a young white guy named Jerry, who's been training with Bruce for 6 months, asks if everything's okay. Bruce smiles and tells him everything's fine. It's the last time most of his students will see him smile for a long time. That evening, Bruce kisses Linda goodbye. He tells her he'll be back in a few hours. She watches from their apartment window as he drives away in their beat-up Chevy, disappearing into the Oakland night. He arrives at the warehouse at 8:45, 15 minutes early. The address he was given led him to a part of Chinatown he's never been to before, down an alley where the streetlights don't quite reach. He parks and sits in his car for a moment, breathing, centering himself the way his first teacher, Ip Man, taught him years ago in Hong Kong. Then he gets out and walks to the warehouse door. It opens before he can knock. One of the 7 witnesses, an elderly man Bruce doesn't recognize, gestures to him inside without a word. Bruce steps through the doorway and the temperature drops. It's colder inside than outside. His breath comes out in clouds. The other 6 witnesses are already there, standing in that circle I told you about. Bruce recognizes 2 of them. Both are masters from San Francisco's Chinatown, men with decades of experience and reputations that command respect. The other 4 are strangers. They don't introduce themselves. They barely acknowledge Bruce's presence. And then Bruce sees him, the man called Wong. He's standing on the opposite side of the circle, perfectly still. He's wearing simple black pants and a white t-shirt, despite the cold. His arms are covered in scars, thin white lines that look like they were made by blades. He's maybe 30 years old, maybe older. Hard to tell. His eyes are what Bruce notices most. They're empty. Not angry, not excited, not even particularly interested. Just empty. This is the look of a man who's done this before. One of the witnesses, the eldest, steps forward and speaks in Cantonese. The rules are simple because there aren't many. No weapons, no biting, no eye gouging. Everything else is permitted. The fight continues until one man submits, is knocked unconscious, or can no longer continue. The 7 witnesses will ensure fairness and will record the outcome. No matter what happens here tonight, no one speaks of it outside these walls. Bruce nods. Wong says nothing. The witness asks if both men understand and accept these terms. Bruce says yes. Wong just nods once. Then the witness tells them something that makes Bruce's stomach drop. He says that traditionally in challenges like this, both fighters would bow to show respect. But Wong has requested that there be no bow, no respect, no honor. This is not a martial arts demonstration. This is not a friendly competition. This is a fight, nothing more, nothing less. The 7 witnesses step back, widening the circle. The warehouse falls silent except for the sound of water dripping somewhere in the darkness and the hum of those bare light bulbs overhead. Bruce removes his jacket. Underneath, he's wearing a simple black shirt. He's 135 pounds of muscle, tendon, and speed. He knows he's giving up height and weight and probably reaches, but he's fought bigger opponents before. He's studied boxing, he's studied fencing, he's studied every martial art he could get his hands on. He's prepared for this, except he's not prepared for what Wong does next. Wong smiles. Not the polite smile of the messenger who delivered the challenge, not the confident smile of a skilled fighter. This is something else. This is the smile of a man who knows how this ends. And Bruce realizes in that moment that he's made a terrible mistake. This isn't a challenge match to settle a dispute. This is an execution dressed up as a fair fight. The 7 witnesses have gone completely still. No one is going to stop this. No one is going to intervene. They're here to watch and remember, nothing more. Bruce shifts into a fighting stance, his famous side-facing position that minimizes his target area. Wong doesn't take a stance at all. He just stands there relaxed, hands at his sides, waiting. And Bruce realizes something else. He's going to have to attack first. This whole thing is designed to make him the aggressor, to put him in the wrong even before the first punch is thrown. If he stands there, Wong will stand there. If he walks away, he loses. His only option is to start the fight. For 5 seconds that feel like 5 hours, Bruce Lee stands 10 feet away from a man whose name he doesn't know, whose background is a mystery, whose skills are completely unknown. Every instinct he has is screaming at him to walk out that door, to take the loss, to accept that some battles aren't worth fighting. But he doesn't walk away, because he can't, because everything he's built, everything he believes in, dies the moment he turns his back. So Bruce Lee does what Bruce Lee always does. He attacks. But the moment he moves, Wong moves too. And Bruce Lee, the fastest martial artist in America, the man who will someday be able to throw 6 punches in 1 second, the man who will become a legend, realizes that Wong is just as fast as he is, maybe faster. The first exchange happens in less than 2 seconds. Bruce throws a lead jab to test Wong's reflexes. Wong slips it and counters with a straight right that Bruce barely blocks. They separate. Circle. The sound of their feet scraping on concrete echoes through the warehouse. Bruce attacks again, this time a combination. Jab, cross, low kick. Wong blocks the first 2 and steps into the kick, neutralizing its power. He counters with an elbow that Bruce dodges by inches. They separate again. 3 exchanges in. 30 seconds of fighting. Neither man has landed a clean shot. The 7 witnesses watch in silence. No encouragement, no reaction, just watching. Bruce changes tactics. He fakes a high punch and shoots low, trying to take Wong to the ground where his smaller size might be an advantage. But Wong sprawls, defending the takedown perfectly. And as Bruce tries to adjust, Wong brings a knee up that catches Bruce on the shoulder. Not the head, not the jaw, the shoulder. Like Wong is still just playing, still just testing. They reset. Both men are breathing harder now, and Bruce sees something in Wong's eyes, a flicker of recognition. Like Wong just figured something out about Bruce's style, about his timing. Like a chess player who's just seen 5 moves ahead. This is bad. This is very bad. Bruce attacks again, more aggressively now, trying to overwhelm Wong with volume. Punches, kicks, elbows, everything he's got. Wong defends most of it, absorbs a few shots that would drop a normal person, and then, in the middle of Bruce's combination, Wong does something Bruce has never seen before. He catches Bruce's punch mid-air, not to block it, but to trap it. And with Bruce's arm extended and trapped, Wong steps in and drives his other fist into Bruce's ribs. The sound echoes through the warehouse like a gunshot. Bruce's vision goes white for a second. The pain is unlike anything he's felt in training. This isn't a controlled sparring shot. This is a punch designed to break bones. He manages to pull his arm free and create distance, but he's hurt. He knows it. Wong knows it. The 7 witnesses know it. And for the first time, Bruce Lee understands that he might actually lose this fight. Worse, he might not walk out of this warehouse. Wong is advancing now, not rushing, just walking forward with the confidence of a man who's done this 100 times before. His hands are up, but loose, ready, and that smile is back. Bruce's side is screaming at him where Wong's punch landed. Breathing hurts, but there's nowhere to go, no one to call for help. The 7 witnesses aren't going to stop this until it's over. So Bruce does the only thing he can do. He fights back. But there's something Bruce Lee doesn't know yet. Something that Wong knows. Something that the 7 witnesses know. This fight isn't going to end the way Bruce thinks it will. Because before Bruce Lee walked into this warehouse, decisions had already been made. Money had already changed hands. And Wong has been given very specific instructions about how this fight needs to end. Instructions that have nothing to do with fairness or honor or tradition. Before we get to what happens next, you need to understand who Bruce Lee was really up against. Because the man they called Wong, the man with the empty eyes and the scarred arms, wasn't just another martial artist. He was something much worse. And the 7 witnesses, the men Bruce thought were there to ensure a fair fight, knew exactly who Wong was and what he was capable of. They knew, and they let Bruce walk in anyway. To understand Wong, you have to go back to Hong Kong in the 1950s, back to a city that was half British colony, half Chinese underworld, a city where fortunes were made and lost in back-alley gambling dens, where territorial disputes were settled with fists and knives, and where a certain kind of man could make a very good living if he had 2 qualities: the ability to fight and the willingness to hurt people for money. Wong had both. Nobody knows his real name. The man who broke his silence in 2003, one of the 7 witnesses, he called him Wong, but he admitted that was probably an alias. What we do know, what the witness was willing to share, paints a picture of someone who existed in the shadows of Hong Kong's criminal underworld. According to the testimony, Wong grew up in Kowloon Walled City. If you don't know what that was, imagine a place where 40,000 people lived in a space the size of a few city blocks. No government, no police, no laws except the ones enforced by the triads. It was torn down in the 90s, but in the 50s and 60s, it was the most densely populated, most lawless place on earth. In a place like that, you learned to fight or you didn't survive. Wong learned to fight. The witness said Wong studied several styles. Northern Shaolin, which gave him those long-range kicks Bruce had already experienced. Hunga, which explained his powerful horse stance and iron body conditioning. And something else, something the witness couldn't quite identify. A style that involved a lot of elbow and knee work, strikes from strange angles, techniques that seemed designed not to score points or demonstrate skill, but to injure as efficiently as possible. Years later, people would recognize it as an early form of what's now called Lei Tai fighting. Full contact, no rules combat that was practiced in underground tournaments throughout China. But in 1964, most martial artists in America had never heard of it. Bruce Lee had never heard of it. By his early 20s, Wong had developed a reputation in Hong Kong's underground fighting circuits. He would take matches for money, street fights, private challenges, the kind where wealthy men bet on the outcome and the fighters got a percentage if they won. And Wong won, a lot. But winning wasn't enough, because in those circles, in those fights, you didn't just have to win. You had to send a message. You had to make sure your opponent, and everyone watching understood that challenging you again would be a very bad idea. Wong was good at sending messages. The witness described one fight in particular. 1961, in a basement in Mongkok, Wong fought a practitioner of Choi Li Foot, a style known for its powerful strikes and aggressive techniques. The fight lasted less than 3 minutes. Wong broke the man's arm in 2 places, fractured his jaw, and according to witnesses, kept hitting him even after he'd fallen unconscious. They had to pull Wong off, and when they did, when they asked him why he didn't stop, Wong said something that everyone remembered. He said, "If you don't finish the job, you have to do it again later." That's when they started calling him Ghost Hand. Not because his hands were fast, though they were, but because when Wong hit you, you didn't see it coming. His strikes came from angles that didn't make sense, with timing that was impossible to predict. 1 second you'd be trading punches, the next you'd be on the ground with no memory of how you got there. And sometimes you don't get up. The witness claimed that Wong killed at least 3 men in sanctioned underground matches. Sanctioned meaning the triads had approved them, that bets had been placed, that everyone involved understood the risks. In Hong Kong in the 50s and 60s, if you died in one of those fights, there was no investigation, no questions. Your body disappeared and life went on. Wong's opponents disappeared. But here's the thing about being a successful underground fighter in Hong Kong. Eventually, you attract attention, and not always the good kind. By the early 60s, Wong had become expensive. He was demanding more money for fights. He was being selective about which matches he'd take. And in the world of the triads, when you start thinking you're more important than the organization, you become a problem. So they sent him to America. Now, the witness wasn't entirely clear on the details. He said there was a dispute, money that went missing, accusations of cheating, the usual triad politics. Wong might have been sent to America as punishment. Or he might have been sent as an operative, someone to manage triad interests in San Francisco and Oakland. Or maybe he just needed to disappear for a while until things cooled down in Hong Kong. Whatever the reason, Wong showed up in San Francisco in late 1963, and he brought his reputation with him. The Chinese community in the Bay Area in the 60s was tight-knit. News traveled fast, especially news from Hong Kong. Within weeks of Wong's arrival, everyone knew who he was. Or at least, everyone knew the stories. The underground fighter, the enforcer, the man with ghost hand. Most people avoided him, the smart ones anyway. But the traditional martial arts masters, the ones who were upset about Bruce Lee teaching non-Chinese students, saw an opportunity. Because Wong wasn't just a fighter, he was a message, a representation of old-world martial arts, the kind practiced in dark basements and dirty streets, where there were no rules and no mercy. If they could get Wong to fight Bruce Lee, and if Wong won, it would prove something. It would prove that Bruce's modern, integrated, philosophy-based approach to martial arts was inferior to the old ways, the brutal ways. So they made Wong an offer. The witness wouldn't say exactly how much money changed hands, but he said it was substantial, enough that Wong, who'd been working odd jobs in Chinatown and occasionally providing muscle for triad operations, suddenly became very interested in traditional martial arts politics. The deal was simple. Fight Bruce Lee, win, and make sure the win was decisive enough that Bruce would think twice about continuing to teach the way he'd been teaching. The witness said Wong asked one question, how decisive? And one of the masters, one of the men who would later stand as a witness in that warehouse, told him, decisive enough that he remembers it every time he tries to teach. Wong smiled and said that wouldn't be a problem. That here's what Bruce Lee didn't know. Here's what makes this whole thing even darker than it already is. The challenge, the formal invitation, the promise of a fair fight witnessed by respected members of the community, all of that was theater. Because 4 of the 7 witnesses had contributed money to Wong's payment, they weren't neutral observers. They were investors, and they expected a return on their investment. The 2 masters Bruce recognized, the respected ones from San Francisco. They weren't part of the deal. They'd been invited specifically because their presence would give the proceedings legitimacy. If Bruce somehow managed to win, these 2 masters would confirm it. and the traditional community would have to accept the outcome. But nobody expected Bruce to win, because nobody except those two legitimate masters knew what Wong really was. They thought he was just a skilled fighter from Hong Kong. They didn't know about the underground matches, the deaths, the fact that Wong had been told explicitly to make sure Bruce Lee remembered this fight for the rest of his life. So when Bruce Lee walked into that warehouse on December 20th, 1964, he thought he was walking into a challenge match, a test of skill, a way to prove his philosophy and earn the right to teach whoever he wanted. He had no idea he was walking into an ambush. The witness, the one who finally broke his silence in 2003, said he'd carried the guilt for almost 40 years. He said he was young then, in his 30s, and he'd been promised that Wong would just rough Bruce up a little, scare him, make him think twice. Nobody told him that Wong's idea of roughing someone up involved broken bones and permanent injuries. He said by the time he realized what was really happening, by the time he understood the kind of man Wong was, it was too late. Bruce was already there. The fight had already begun. And the rules, those minimal rules they'd established, meant the witnesses couldn't intervene no matter what happened. All they could do was watch, and what they watched in that freezing warehouse in Oakland was Bruce Lee fighting for his life against a man who'd been paid to destroy him, a man who had no interest in honor or tradition or the future of martial arts, a man who just wanted to do his job and collect his money. The witness said that after Wong landed that first solid body shot, the one that made Bruce's ribs scream, he saw Wong's expression change. Up until that moment, Wong had been controlled, professional. But after he hurt Bruce, after he saw the pain in Bruce's eyes, something shifted. Wong started to enjoy it, and that's when the witness realized that this wasn't going to end with Bruce just losing the fight. This was going to end with Bruce being carried out of that warehouse, maybe to a hospital, maybe to a morgue. The 7 witnesses had created a situation where they couldn't stop what they'd started. They'd made rules that prevented intervention. They'd promised Wong he wouldn't face consequences. They'd bet money on the outcome. And now they had to watch it play out. But here's the thing about Bruce Lee. Here's what Wong and the corrupt witnesses and the traditional masters who'd hired him didn't understand. Bruce Lee didn't become a legend because he never lost. He didn't become a legend because he never got hurt. He became a legend because when he was hurt, when he was losing, when everything seemed impossible, he found a way, not through traditional techniques, not through the forms and katas and ancient wisdom that the traditional masters thought made them superior, but through adaptation, through evolution, through doing whatever it took to survive. In that warehouse, bleeding and hurt and facing a man who was better than him in almost every way, Bruce Lee stopped being a martial artist, and he became something else, something new, something that would change martial arts forever. But the transformation isn't clean, it isn't pretty, and it isn't painless. What happened next in that warehouse? The way Bruce Lee found his way out of the trap they'd set for him came at a cost that Bruce would pay for the rest of his very short life. Because when you fight a ghost, even if you win, you're haunted forever. 3 minutes into the fight, Bruce Lee is losing. There's no other way to say it. His side is on fire where Wong landed that body shot. Every breath sends a spike of pain through his rib cage. He's pretty sure at least one rib is cracked, maybe 2. His left eye is starting to swell from a glancing elbow he didn't see coming. And Wong looks like he's barely started. The 7 witnesses stand motionless around the circle. In the dim light of the warehouse, they look less like men and more like shadows. Silent, judging, waiting for the inevitable conclusion. Bruce circles to his left, trying to keep his injured side away from Wong. But Wong follows, patient, methodical. He's not rushing. Why would he? Time is on his side. The longer this goes, the more tired Bruce gets, the more that injured rib slows him down. Bruce throws a few testing kicks, trying to maintain distance. Wong blocks them easily, barely moving. Then Wong does something that changes everything. He speaks. First words since the fight began. In Cantonese, Wong says, You should have stayed in Seattle. It's not a taunt. It's not anger. It's almost gentle, like a teacher correcting a student. And that's when Bruce understands something crucial. Wong doesn't hate him. Wong isn't angry about tradition or honor, or who Bruce is teaching. This is just business. Wong is being paid to break Bruce, and he's going to do his job professionally, efficiently, without any personal investment whatsoever. Somehow that makes it worse. Bruce attacks again, throwing everything he has. A flying side kick that Wong deflects, a spinning back fist that Wong ducks under, a low sweep that Wong jumps over. And with Bruce off balance from the sweep, Wong counters. It happens so fast that the witnesses barely see it. Wong's fist comes in from an angle Bruce doesn't expect, catching him on the jaw. Not a knockout punch, but enough to snap Bruce's head back and send him stumbling. Bruce's legs go rubbery for a second. The warehouse tilts. He drops to one knee. The eldest witness takes a half step forward. For a moment, it looks like he might stop the fight. Declare Wong the winner. Save Bruce from further damage. But then Wong looks at him, just a glance, and the witness steps back. Whatever Wong's eyes communicate in that moment, it's enough. This isn't over yet. Bruce is on one knee, tasting blood. He can hear his own breathing, ragged and harsh. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice is telling him to stay down, to admit defeat, to preserve what's left of his body and his dignity. If he submits now, it's over. He can go home to Linda. He can find another way, another path. But then he thinks about what happens if he quits. He closes his schools. He stops teaching integrated classes. He becomes another cautionary tale about what happens when you challenge tradition. Every student who believed in him, every person who thought martial arts could be different, they all learned the same lesson. The old ways always win. Evolution is a lie. Change is impossible. Bruce Lee gets back up. Wong tilts his head slightly, like he's genuinely curious about this decision. Then he comes forward again. What happened next? The witness described it as the turning point, but not in the way you'd expect. Because Bruce doesn't suddenly discover some secret technique. He doesn't remember some ancient wisdom from Ip Man. He doesn't have a Hollywood moment where music swells and he overcomes the odds through sheer willpower. Instead, Bruce Lee does something that goes against everything he's been taught, everything he's trained for, everything the martial arts community believes in. He stops fighting like a martial artist. Wong comes in with a combination: high punch, mid-level punch, low kick, textbook, hung ga. Bruce doesn't block, doesn't defend. Instead, he lunges forward inside Wong's guard and tackles him. No technique. No form, just raw desperation. They hit the concrete floor hard. The impact knocks the wind out of both of them. This isn't Wing Chun. This isn't Kung Fu. This is a street brawl. And for the first time since the fight started, Bruce has an advantage, because Wong has spent his entire life fighting in structured matches, underground tournaments and organized violence. But Bruce grew up scrapping in the streets of Hong Kong before he ever learned martial arts. He knows how to fight dirty. On the ground, Bruce doesn't go for submissions or joint locks. He goes for Wong's eyes. Wong turns his head, protecting his vision, and Bruce drives his elbow into Wong's temple. Once, twice, 3 times. Ugly, brutal, effective. The witnesses are no longer standing still. One of the conspirators, starts to say something in Cantonese. The honest witnesses, the 2 who didn't know about the setup, they're watching with expressions that mix shock and recognition. They're seeing something being born in real time, something that doesn't have a name yet. Wong manages to throw Bruce off. Both men scramble to their feet. For the first time, Wong isn't smiling. There's blood running down the side of his face from where Bruce's elbow connected. It's not a lot of blood, but it's enough. Enough to show that Wong can bleed. Enough to show that he's not invincible. Enough to give Bruce hope. They face each other again. Both breathing hard now. Both were damaged. The fight is 4 minutes in, maybe 4.5. In a boxing match, that's half a round. In this warehouse, with no protective gear and no rules, it feels like an eternity. Bruce's strategy has changed. He's no longer trying to out-technique Wong. He's trying to survive long enough to find an opening, any opening. He starts mixing traditional techniques with things that aren't techniques at all. A Wing Chun straight punch followed by a wild haymaker. A proper side kick followed by a desperate lunge. Nothing connects cleanly, but he's making Wong work. Making Wong think. Making Wong realize that this isn't going to be as easy as he thought. Wong adjusts. Of course he does. He's a professional. He starts targeting Bruce's injured ribs, throwing body shots every time Bruce gives him an angle. Each punch lands like a hammer on an anvil. Bruce's vision whites out with pain, but he doesn't go down. He can't go down, because if he goes down again, he might not get up. 5 minutes in, Bruce throws a high kick that Wong blocks, but it's a feint. While Wong's hands are up, Bruce shoots low again, not for a clean takedown this time, but just to disrupt Wong's base. They grapple, both men trying to control the other's arms, trying to create space for a strike. In the clinch, Wong brings his knee up. Bruce twists, takes it on his hip instead of his stomach, uses the momentum to spin Wong toward the edge of the circle. One of the witnesses has to step back to avoid getting knocked over. The warehouse that felt so large when Bruce first entered now feels claustrophobic. There's nowhere to retreat, nowhere to reset. Wong drives his forehead toward Bruce's face, trying for a headbutt. Bruce barely gets his hands up in time, catching Wong's head, controlling it. For just a second, they're frozen there, each man trying to overpower the other. Bruce can smell Wong's sweat, can feel the heat coming off him, and can see the absolute focus in those empty eyes. And Bruce makes a decision. He lets go of Wong's head and drops his weight, pulling Wong off balance. As Wong stumbles forward, Bruce pivots and brings his elbow up in an arc that catches Wong on the side of the head. It's not a clean shot. Half of the impact glances off, but the other half, the part that connects with Wong's ear, does damage. Wong staggers. Actually staggers. He's hurt. For the first time in the fight, Bruce is the one moving forward and Wong is the one backing up. The dynamic has shifted. Not completely, not decisively, but enough. The witnesses see it. Wong sees it. And most importantly, Bruce sees it. But here's what Bruce doesn't see, what he can't see, because he's focused on Wong. 3 of the corrupt witnesses exchange glances, quick, worried, because they didn't pay for this. They paid for Bruce Lee to be taught a lesson, to be broken, to be scared into compliance. They didn't pay to watch their hired enforcer actually be in trouble. One of them, a man in his 50s wearing an expensive watch, catches Wong's eye, makes a small gesture, the universal sign for "finish this." Wong nods, almost imperceptibly, but Bruce, who's been studying human movement his entire life, catches it, sees the communication, understands in that instant that this was never a fair fight, could never have been a fair fight, and something in Bruce Lee snaps, not breaks, snaps into place. All his life he's been taught that martial arts is about control, about discipline, about the perfection of technique and the suppression of emotion. Ip Man taught him to be like water, flowing, adaptable, but always contained, always controlled. But water doesn't just flow. Water also crashes. Water also destroys. 6 minutes into the fight, Wong comes in hard, following the unspoken order to end this. He throws a combination designed to finish the job. Strikes, aimed at Bruce's head, his injured ribs, his legs. All of them are powerful. All of them potentially fight-ending. Bruce doesn't defend. Instead, he accepts the punishment and trades. Wong's fist slams into Bruce's ribs again. The pain is blinding, excruciating. Bruce feels something crack, something give way inside his chest. But while Wong is committed to that punch, Bruce is already countering. His fist, short and straight, finds the gap in Wong's guard and connects, hard, with the bridge of Wong's nose. The sound is sickeningly wet. Wong stops dead. For the first time, the expression in his eyes is not empty. It's shock, then pain, then a terrible, cold rage. The flow of the fight has completely reversed. Bruce doesn't hesitate. He doesn't step back to admire his work. He follows up immediately. The traditional masters would have been horrified. This isn't kung fu. This is savage. He drives his forearm into Wong's throat, a devastating close-quarters strike. Wong tries to block, but the blow is too fast, too sudden, coming while he's still stunned from the broken nose. Wong gasps, his hands flying to his throat, trying to pull Bruce's arm away. Bruce then wraps his arm around Wong's head, not for a traditional joint lock, but for control, and throws his entire body weight into a low-level judo hip throw. Wong, heavy and unbalanced, hits the concrete for the second time, this time much harder. The air rushes out of his lungs in a wheezing sound. Bruce lands on top of him, but the pain from his ribs is so intense that he can't hold the position. He scrambles away, gaining a foot of distance, but he maintains eye contact. Wong is still on the ground, struggling to breathe. Blood from his nose is pooling on the concrete. His eyes, the empty eyes Bruce had feared, are now flickering with confusion and panic. He looks at the witnesses. He looks at Bruce. He looks at his own hands, which failed him. Bruce is standing over him, swaying slightly, breathing shallowly through the pain. His shirt is ripped, his body is bruised, and his face is already swelling. He looks more like a shipwreck survivor than a martial artist. The eldest witness steps forward again, his voice strained. "Stop. The challenge is over." Bruce ignores him. He takes one slow, deliberate step toward Wong. Wong tries to push himself up, but he's too hurt, too winded, too disoriented. He raises a hand in a gesture that Bruce recognizes instantly. It's the gesture of submission, of surrender. Bruce Lee stops. He stands there for a moment, simply watching the defeated man on the floor. The warehouse is silent again, but this time it's a different silence. It's the silence of a truth revealed. Wong slowly, painfully manages to sit up. He stares at Bruce, not with hatred, but with something akin to disbelief. He had been paid to win, to destroy, to make a point, and he had failed. The eldest witness clears his throat. He turns to the other 6 men. The terms of the challenge have been met. Bruce Lee has won. The 2 legitimate masters nod in agreement, their faces grim but resolute. The 4 conspirators look away, unable to meet Bruce's eye, unable to hide their shock and humiliation. Their investment has failed. The winner is Bruce Lee, but the victory is hollow. The traditional community will honor the terms, yes, but they will never forget what they saw. Bruce didn't win by being a better traditionalist. He won by abandoning traditionalist. He won by fighting dirty, by fighting like a man who had nothing left to lose. Bruce turns and walks toward the warehouse door, favoring his right side. He doesn't look back. The witnesses don't move. No one offers to help him. No one says congratulations. He's just a broken man walking away from a place where he was supposed to die. He gets to his beat-up Chevy. The key shakes in the ignition. He finally manages to start the car and drives slowly, painfully out of the Oakland night and back towards San Francisco, toward Linda. He arrives home in the freezing pre-dawn hours. Linda is asleep on the sofa waiting. When she sees him, she screams. Not a scream of fear, but of horror. Bruce is covered in sweat and blood, his face a landscape of bruises, his movements stiff and agonizing. He whispers, "I won." Linda doesn't ask who he fought. She doesn't ask about the rules or the witnesses. She helps him undress and sees the full extent of the damage. His entire left side is a mess of dark purple bruising. He can barely breathe. The next morning, Linda takes Bruce to a Chinese herbalist, not a hospital. Going to a hospital would mean questions, police, news. The whole point of the fight was that it never happened. The herbalist confirms the worst of their fears. Cracked ribs, severe bruising, internal damage that will take months to heal. He tells Bruce he needs to rest, complete rest, no training, no teaching. Bruce ignores him. He spends the next 4 months in agony. Every breath is a knife in his side. He can't punch with any power. He can't kick without a searing spike of pain. He realizes that the fight with Wong, the victory that allowed him to keep his schools open, has almost destroyed the very thing it saved. But during those 4 months, Bruce Lee does something extraordinary, something only a legend could do. He couldn't train his body, so he trained his mind. He sat for hours reviewing the fight. Why did Wong win the first 3 minutes? Why did Bruce's traditional techniques fail? Why did he only win when he resorted to a tackle, a headbutt, a dirty street fight? The answer became his philosophy, his destiny. Traditional martial arts was too stylized, too rigid, too focused on form and ceremony. Bruce realized that the forms he had been taught, the blocks and strikes and stances, were only effective when your opponent was following the same rules. Wong didn't follow the rules. Wong fought to destroy. Bruce needed a martial art that had no style, that used no forms, an art that took what was useful from every style: boxing, fencing, Wing Chun, judo, and discarded the rest. A fluid, adaptable, constantly evolving system. A style that could fight a ghost. He named it Jeet Kune, the way of the intercepting fist. The warehouse fight, the brutal, dirty victory over the ghost hand, didn't just end a challenge. It killed the traditional martial artist Bruce Lee was, and gave birth to the global icon he would become. Bruce Lee never saw Wong again. The ghost hand collected his payment, whatever it was, and disappeared back into the shadows of the criminal underworld. The 7 witnesses never spoke of the fight until nearly 40 years later. But for Bruce Lee, the fight never ended. Every time he taught a lesson, every time he threw a punch, every time he took a breath, he remembered the cold concrete, the bare light bulbs, and the feeling of a broken rib. He remembered the cost of evolution. And he never forgot that to truly live, you sometimes have to fight like you're ready to die.